Why do I keep blundering at chess? What is the reason why my rating isn't going up? I will answer your question today. So I will show you actually a game played by Magnus Carlsen against Jan Nepomniachtchi. And basically this game is pretty interesting. First of all, because it's a London system, and basically the London system is winning by force, as you know, as we already saw that on this YouTube channel. But also, I want to show you what happens when super grandmaster blunders. Because usually when you blunder, it's because of some tactical issues, some classical beginner type of issues. But when super grandmaster blunders, it's usually because of something more deep. And once you understand that by the grandmasters, you will actually understand that by yourself. So let's go with the analysis. So the game started with d4, knight f6, knight f3, g6, and bishop f4, the classical and the favorite one of this YouTube channel, the London system. If you're looking for a book about the London system, just go down in the description. Just go down in the description. So bishop g7, e3, so the classical, opening setup, bring the pieces out, castles, and bishop e2. So what is Magnus Carlsen doing? What Magnus Carlsen is doing is pretty simple. He doesn't want to play e4 and battle, for some thick theory type of stuff. He's basically just trying to, bring the, get the pieces into the game and eventually create a plan in the middle game. d6. Why d6? Because if you go d5, then the e5 square is weak, which means that one day white will be able to play knight e5, then eventually even bishop f3 and etc. So d6 was played. Castles and now knight h5. Why? Because, Nepomniachtchi didn't like the fact that, yeah, this bishop is here, probably one day this bishop will be good on this diagonal. No. But also, white has, a very strong pawn on d4, so basically Jan Nepomniachtchi is already playing the middle game, preparing some, some plans, trying to create a plan with an e5 pawn break in the center, so he's already trying to play the middle game, even though he still has some pieces on, on their initial squares, the knight and the bishop on c8. So basically, there's already one, I don't want to say inaccurate thing, since knight h5 is, normal theory, but who cares about the theory when it comes to play chess? Basically, he's already going for a middle game plan, even though he still has some pieces on their initial squares. Knight h5, bishop g5, because if you're just giving the bishop back, then it won't be great. So bishop g5, and now h6. Just he keeps harassing the bishop. Bishop h4, g5. So g5 is very, very aggressive. He's just trying to play hyper-aggressive chess, trying to get some very unusual type of positions against Magnus. And honestly, it doesn't really matter who you are and who's your opponent. Basically, if you go for some I don't want to say nonsense, but if you go for some crazy moves, you shouldn't be surprised that your position gets wild and crazy. So knight f3 on d2. If you go bishop g3, then okay, everything is playable. Knight c6 brings some pieces into the action. g4, knight g3, just to destroy the pawn structure, gets a correct position, but black is a little bit too advanced. Probably you should then go for something like bishop f5 or f5, trying to keep aggressing and basically doing something like that and some attacks. But this is already strange. You already have to prove that all the moves that you played are good, even though you played all these moves to prove that the moves are good. But okay, knight fd2, counter-attacking the knight. Now if you take on h4, I take on h5, and basically you can resign because this is a very bad pawn structure. Every middle game is losing, every endgame is losing, and if I manage to go c4, knight c3, or knight c3, knight e4, or knight c3, knight f3, or just even knight c3, the game is strategically completely winning because of the pawn structure, and you still have some pieces on their initial squares. So knight f6, bishop g3, and notice how the pieces are still not moving, and that is a problem. So knight c6 brings some pieces into the action, and now knight c3 just brings some pieces into the action. That is normal, you cannot do and start any plan if your pieces are on b8, c8, a8, d8, f8. It's usually not possible. So knight c3, e5, striking into the center. I'm sorry for the doggos. D takes e5, knight takes e5. If you take back with the pawn, then the pawn might actually be a weakness because I will go knight e4 at some point, I suppose, or even bishop f3, and I have a very nice control on the light squares in the center, and one day I might actually capture and win that pawn. So it's already, you already have to prove that this pawn is good, even though this pawn had to be an argument itself. So d takes e5, knight takes e5, and now f4 striking to the center. Why? Because black took way too much space on the king side. So Magnus Carlsen decided, yeah, I will just open up the position and get you there. F4, knight g4, trying to counterattack some weaknesses, so Magnus Carlsen defended. So even though the position looks pretty strange, the rook is on f3, there are actually quite a lot of reasons why white is better. That thing over there. So basically, the reason why a super grandmaster might blunder is because he gets some short-term advantages and he misevaluates the long-term type of problems. And the long-term type of problems in that position is the king, which is weak. So that is why when you will create a plan or find some moves, you should always think of what you're actually achieving right now, and also ask yourself the following question: will I get something about it? You know, it's like cryptos. You know, if you start, or stocks, you know, if you start to buy something, of course you can try to be a short-term guy and you know, and everything is beautiful in the short-term vision. But if you're applying some short-term visions for a long-term, you know, majestuous life, it's never going to be good for you. And basically, yeah, this is what happens. Rook e8, trying to pretend in everything, but knight f1. And now, even though the pieces look a little bit, you know, they look a little bit strange, this is a real problem, because when you won't get any pawns over there, I'll be able to create some plans, and you won't be able to do that. So this is the most, you know, absurd way for you to lose, because you won't get positions which loses because of some 20 moves type of domination problems. But this is how grandmasters lose. And if you lose games like that, you know, it hurts, but you prefer losing games like that rather than games in which you're just blundering pieces in one move. Now, if you're looking for a way to just, you know, get grandmaster type of positions, just subscribe to the channel. You know, you will see a lot of good games which will actually teach you how to play good chess. But yeah, basically, this position is just a problem, and it's funny, the engine might actually say equal, I don't know, and I don't want to know, but basically this is a very hard position. Knight h5, and now just bishop e1, because we still don't want to get the knight over there. And funnily enough, you know, once we remove the bishop, again, the bishop looks bad, but there is not even a counterplay like bishop takes c3, destroying the pawn structure. And funnily enough, all the pieces are actually facing each other. I mean, the bishop is facing all black's pieces together. f5, trying to defend, and the engine says it's the mistake, but the mistake was actually some moves prior. I think he missed, black just black didn't use his full potential in that position, you know, e5 and then knight takes. I think that still taking with the pawn was probably the best, but okay. And now it's just a problem because the light squares are weak and there's actually a small tactic. It's takes, and h3, and once the knight gets out of the way, I can just take on g5 and take on f5. So this is now a pretty long tactic, but it's findable for players like Magnus Carlsen and myself, etc. So yeah, this is basically what happened. Now the rest of the game isn't really interesting. Now he's just up a pawn. He would just convert. If you want a video about how to convert chess positions, just let me know in the comment section. But yeah, okay, this is not really interesting, and he resigned after that move. So that's about it. Okay, to keep it simple, try to be good at tactics and strategy, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. See you in the future. If you're looking for a chess coach or chess book, everything is in the description. See you in the future. Take care.